My guest this week is John Flansburgh of They Might Be Giants. For over 40 years, They Might Be Giants has treated their entire history of popular music as a trampoline rather than a rule book. Like two pinballs pinging off each other through musical murals stretching into a giddy ether, the two Johns, Linnell and Flansburgh, continue to fire ideas off one another like particles in a perpetual motion experiment. And as a massive early supporter and recipient of the power of the music video, They Might Be Giants continues to smash both music and film in extremely independent ways up to this very day. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions per movie, Jon Flansburgh. Hi, John.
Hey, Chris. So nice to talk to you.
I have to thank you for something. Decades ago, John Cameron Mitchell, Stephen Trask, and I were putting together a charity album for the Harvey Milk School in New York City with songs from Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And you kindly did a song for the album, but you also did a music video for the documentary that Sundance was putting together following the kids at their high school. So I want to thank the Deeply Felt Puppet Theater. Will you tell them, please say hi to Gloria Felt, Jebediah Deeply, and also Pearly Poodle for doing that, because when we saw that, we were like, this is why They Might Be Giants is amazing. Like, you didn't need to do that. But you did it.
Thank you so much.
It was so cool.
It was a lot of fun to put together. You know, I did all the puppet stuff. My wife did all the puppet stuff. Robin Goldwasser, and she did a lot of. We did a bunch of records for Disney that were like big video projects, and we had all these puppets, and it was just nice to do something. It was very funny because the song is so fraught. You know, it's such a great song.
It is very fraught. Exactly.
And you know, I guess it's not in the movie.
Tommy Gnosis sings it to Hedwig for a brief second in the film where he's trying to figure out a chord.
Okay.
But in the play, it is in the play.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it from the play, and it was a really effective song. I mean, to me, it was one of those songs like you heard it once, and you're like, we're referring to the song "The Long Grift," which is, I guess part of it is it's got a very Beatley, kind of moving baseline moving across chords kind of thing that's very cool.
Yeah,
but it's just so sad. I mean, it's really got an ache to it as a song.
But that's perfect because, like, look, Sleep's older sister on your new record.
Yes.
That pulls at the strings of my heart. You know, just the hi ho, just like the melody lines. Just it's really beautiful, John.
Oh, thank you so much.
And again, They Might Be Giants, no stranger to counterpointing emotion and energy in a song. It was perfect that you guys picked that song.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, I feel like songs like that kind of teach, like, you know, it's useful to, you know, I have not learned a lot of other people's songs in my life. I actually sort of started writing songs because I couldn't figure out how to play anybody else's songs. But a song like The Long Grift is like actually kind of like a good object lesson in how to write a dreamy song.
Yeah. Which
is not necessarily, you know, like, I don't think I have like an easy default to go into that kind of mode, but it's always interesting when you get it going.
Well, and it's fascinating because this is a duo. John Cameron Mitchell and Stephen Trask accidentally sit next to each other in an airplane, and one of them is reading a book about Fassbender, and they talk, and next thing you know, they are soulmates for this amazing artistic project where John's writing the story and directing it and acting in it. Stephen knows how to write songs that just feel like they're also from John. And then you are in this amazing duo that stretches back to junior high school, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of long-term friendship and camaraderie is, you know, bands are obviously chemistry-based. The best ones are chemistry-based. But it's very rare that people meet that young and are still here celebrating new music. So kudos. It's
Oh
amazing.
yeah. Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, I've forgotten like 90% of my life, but it sure feels, and you hear like, old people say this. I mean, I say so many things that like I heard people say on like the Merv Griffin show, and I just think like,
Yes.
what are they? What kind of bologna sandwich is that? But the truth is, like, my life has gone by. I mean, Chris, I got to be straight with you. I feel like my life has been like 20 minutes long. Like it's just like it's just flown by. Like I know I've done a lot of things, and people are like, "Wow, you guys have been doing this. It must be incredible." And it's like, it's actually pretty credible because it seems like I just blinked, and now it's all like it's like I'm like getting the long envelopes from AARP, you know,
Yes.
and it's just like what, like I don't
Oh
know.
my God. It's so weird. Yeah. You're closer to the age of the people who were your backing band as senior citizens in a video,
Oh,
then
oh yeah,
then both of us are to like the age of the band Geese. Like we
yeah,
are closer to
yeah,
that, and it's just kind of amazing because yeah, things just oh my God.
yeah.
I
Time
mean,
time flies.
yeah, and it's that's been a mantra forever. But I do feel like They Might Be Giants really did celebrate. Not may not be the right word, but like we're not fearful about writing about aging or death or things that were a little
Oh,
distant when you
sure.
were younger, and that's fascinating.
I mean, young people are. I think we were fascinated with death themes for like a half dozen different reasons, and at its most shallow, it was just a great ejector seat out of an idea that we were probably getting tired of a little too soon. Like it was just like literally, crashing the car in the middle of a song to just kind of spice things up. And then in some cases, it was like a more, sincerely observed observation about actual, things that are scary and hard to reconcile. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's strange being in a band for 40 years, but I don't think we would have stuck it out if it wasn't like a very easy. I think we felt very lucky from our very. I mean, I've not ever discussed this with Linnell, um, but I do remember very early on feeling like knowing that the band went over in a way that was like absolutely different. Like I'd been in other bands, and John
Right.
had been in other bands, and it's like we put the band together to suit ourselves. Like the idea of we had a friend who had a sort of a club act that he did with a drum machine where he played guitar and sang his songs in clubs, and it was a very easy format, and it was the kind of thing you could only have done starting around the time that we started.
Right.
Like the technology, like they're really we started before there were drum machines, or they like drum machines were just emerging. So like you kind of go like, oh well, they're trying to do a band with a drum machine. Like anybody could do that, but like that idea was not available to anyone even like a year or two before we started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We're
so
talking Wall of Voodoo if you're
it-
lucky.
yeah. So like there was a lot of emerging technology around what we were doing, and that was interesting. Um, but we also really wanted to preserve the home recording aesthetic of what we were doing, and we knew that there was a lot of what we were doing that was kind of fragile, and maybe even not. It might not even be the part that people listening liked the most,
Hmm.
but it was the part that we were most interested in. And I think we were very selfish very early on about doing what we wanted to do just for our own satisfaction, because we weren't kids. Like we weren't 18 years old going like, I wish someone would tell us how this works. Like we actually were 23, 24, had done a bunch of like kind of high school and collegey things,
Right.
and seen people do. But we were in New York. We had seen people who had moved. We knew people. John moved to New York in his band to get signed, and they didn't get signed.
Right.
So it was like, they had made, we knew people who had already made really big, really foolish life decisions. And while I wouldn't say by any means we were cynical, but we just thought, let's do something that's, in some simple way, simple, basic, fundamental way, an idealistic like project that's just for fun. And if it's interesting now, even if it ends really soon, it will have been worthwhile because it was interesting to do while we did it. And so, I mean, it's, a lot of people, I mean, and at that time, like I had friends who were like more serious musicians who were like professionally serious musicians who were like, I'm giving myself 3 years, or something, they would have
Sure.
like things like that going through their minds. And it's just like, and what about the rest of your life? Like, are you going to give yourself time for the rest of your life to,
Oh, it's amazing.
yeah. So it's like, I guess in some way, I mean, we weren't careerists, but at the same time, we wanted to do something that was, just really interesting for ourselves. And ultimately, like the fact that, then, we spent a lot of, because there was this pre-recorded part of the project, it actually took a bunch of months to put the band together. And a lot of aesthetic decisions were made as we were doing that, how we would do it and how we'd present ourselves. And then when we finally sort of wheeled it out into the world, very much to our surprise, I think in the back of my mind, I thought we will be appreciated kind of like the way the Perubu, when I saw them in like 1978, were appreciated. Like, which is not to say like everyone was like, this is, I love that hit song you did. You guys are going places. It was more just like, you guys are doing something that's very specific and cool, and kudos to you, whatever. But then from the jump, there was this incredibly positive, familiar response from the audience, where it was much less like they were seeing like, oh, you guys are going to be the next thing, so much as like, like you're reflecting something about the culture and something about the world that we all grew up in, that's very real, that in a way that I've never seen before. And they just really, it was a really positive thing. Like, I feel like we really got our fans like one person at a time.
Well, it didn't exist either. Like your corner of the universe was just like, it needed to have the flag planted by you. This is from my video store. Gigantic Tale of Two Johns.
Oh, yeah.
And so even in this film, just seeing the photographs of like the type of venues you were playing that looked a lot more, almost, at least to my eyes, like a little more, there's going to be a burlesque show following or something like that. Like it just felt like more of like a theatrical thing than a rock club. It's just kind of amazing that it was like time and circumstance and just people waiting for something like you in New York.
Well, it was quite a time. I mean, I have to say, like, there are things that made it out of the East Village contemporaneous with us. I mean, we did multiple bills with Steve Buscemi, who was like in a performance art duo that was like, I mean, in some ways was just a comedy act, but in other ways, it was not like regular. It was much more like post humor comedy, but that hadn't existed. That kind of alt comedy world, absurdist sketch comedy didn't really exist in 1984, but other things, I mean, we played on bills with the Butthole Surfers.
I mean, Jon Spencer's in your music video. It's like,
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I bet They Might Be Giants Pussy Galore shows were epic.
I think they were doing more like Rockotelli kind of stuff. I'm not sure where Pussy Galore played. I did see a show, Jon Spencer Blues Explosion show at CB's, and there were very few people there. There was only like probably 30 people there, but I have to say it was one of the most. I thought I really thought, like, if somebody said like next week he's going to be starring as Elvis Presley. He was a guy. He had so much charisma and was he just was like a sex god. And it just seemed so strange to me that I actually think, as big as Jon Spencer might loom in people's imaginations, I can't believe he wasn't a much bigger star. I don't know how that didn't happen.
Again, it's all optics. Like, to me, he was a star. Like, it was like, oh my
Oh no,
God,
no,
he's huge.
yeah,
But like, the metric is like, compared to what,
right,
But it
right,
is amazing. Like, yeah, the Rolling Stones should have been like, we're bringing Jon Spencer Blues Explosion on the road with us. You know what I mean? Like, they should
right.
have popped in a way. But it's funny because, like, in the documentary, even, there were a bunch of things that really that always stuck with me. One of them was you playing a demo to Linnell for the first time. Like, it's your song. You're playing it for the first time in a studio, and everyone's going to make their judgment call on it. And I just remember being like, oh, I could never. That's terrifying to me, it seems like. Just waiting for it to get the high sign or like be picked apart.
Right.
Is the process still like that for you both?
Well, I mean, I think we're all bringing our best stuff to the project, and we're like the first audience stuff, and we collaborate on tons of stuff, and those collaborations can be very deep. Um, a few years ago, I spent a lot of time uh, putting together beats for John to work to, which was like a very specific kind of project. Like, we've done things where like we've made like stacks of lyrics, sometimes as an excuse to just like smash together as many lyrics as thoughtlessly as possible, just to just get something out. And then handed them off to the other person, and then like the other person will write songs put music to those lyrics,
That's
or
cool.
put tracks together, and then like add put sing over some chord progression, or like we've collaborated long distance in every way you can imagine, and that has been like a super interesting productive thing. Doing the beats thing was interesting because it made me realize that it's probably the closest I will ever come to like working the way like modern like hip hop hit making producers work, because you have to leave out something for the next person to really lay a lot of extra additional information on, like, and coming up with a beat that's actually compelling just on its own, like that doesn't have any like melodic hook or bass line or anything, is kind of weird, because like you're it's sort of like
Yeah.
trying to design a bicycle that's going to compete with cars. It's
Well,
just,
you guys are melody fiends too. So it's like, it's kind of amazing. It's just into the void.
yeah. But it is a fun challenge. It's a fun challenge trying to do a beat,
Yeah.
just by itself. I mean, I collaborated with Mike Doty in a very similar way, where he wanted to do these monolithic songs that just had one riff, and that was an interesting kind of musical thought experiment, where it's just like he was like, I don't want chords, I don't want it to ever change, like
Right.
no verses, no choruses, no bridges, no intros, just like give me like a thing. And it's like, I mean, I got a couple of good ones in there, but it was a little bit of a straitjacket.
One of the first things I heard about They Might Be Giants as an institution was this mythical dial-a-song
Hmm.
situation. And, being on the West Coast and not like looking at the back of the Village Voice where you're putting these numbers, I just had heard that there was this place you could hear They Might Be Giants stuff. And, well, okay, let's just do it right here. The number is 1-844-387-6962.
Is it still going?
It is still there. It's still going. So
Okay.
I it sounds still like an answering machine, because in
Well,
the film you're like, okay, one person calls, they get onto this answering machine. It's a one-to-one situation.
yes.
So, how did you come up with that idea? Because I just thought that was brilliant. And then the second part of this question is the multitude of songs you created for people to call this number. I can't handle it.
Well, it was a great excuse to get loose about songwriting. Like, um, I guess where we grew up and how we grew up, which is kind of a very sort of John Updike kind of uptight New England
Uh-huh.
culture. Like we grew up with like in this like suburban, you know, like sort of professional world. Like like my dad was an architect. John's dad was a psychiatrist. Like it was like that kind of we're the troubled children of these very educated people,
My
and
dad was also an architect.
yeah, there you go. So it's like it's hard, when your dad's an architect, it's like you're in training to be uptight. So it's like it's a lot to kind of work against to get loose. And
The opinions of John on Revolution per movie do not reflect the opinions of my father, who was an architect. Just saying. Okay, now continue.
um, I did go to art school, and actually, probably the most valuable thing I learned from art school was I had a professor in my drawing class who made a very bold declaration right after he said, "If you miss two classes, you will not get a grade higher than a D." Um, he said, "The thing about drawing is, if you make 10 drawings, chances are one of them will be very good. But if you only make one drawing, chances are very strong that it won't be good at all." And it just was like an interesting uh, lesson in just like committing yourself to doing the work, kind of being rigorous with the materials was the other sort of term that was impressed upon me when I was in art school. And it was actually, if you really took it to heart, it was a really important lesson. Is that if you write 10 songs, you're going to be a lot better at songwriting on the other side of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you might even trip over something kind of fantastic without necessarily trying that hard specifically. I mean, it's not like people hear songs and they go, "I love that song. They must have worked so hard at it."
Yeah, but still, you have to like. Do you come up with your lyrics first, and then you find something to match it or counterpoint it? How, like, because of the multitude that you do, I just still, I understand what you're saying, but it's still a monumental, like Sisyphus type of look from the outside.
Well, I mean, there are two of us, and we both write songs, and we both are pretty avid songwriters, just all the time. So it's like that's a multiplier right there.
Okay.
I mean, once you get the hang of it, it's like it's a thing you can know. I mean, we've done things where we've been on like time limits, um, and and felt pretty confident that it was going to be okay. And you can always throw a song away. I mean, that's the other thing that people don't realize is like it's not a high risk thing. It's a little bit. I mean, I don't mean to diminish. I'm not trying to diminish the work of cartoonists, but it's not that. I mean, songwriting is like cartooning in a way, or any kind of art thing. It's like if you know how to do it, you kind of know how to do it. So,
Right.
like, you can be, and the fun thing is like working in a casual way, working in a light way. Um, I think it actually is often, it can be pretty effective.
But are you like leaning over the machine during that time and like playing a song into it, or were you four tracking stuff and then feeding in? Like, since you're putting it into the answering machine to go, like what I just was really curious about, like how it ended up from your head, hand into the machine.
It worked every different way.
Okay.
We would put together songs on the 4-track. I had a 4-track tape recorder, and we would put together multi-track songs that way. We would also just sometimes record directly to a cassette recorder and put that right into the phone machine. And
Okay.
and that was in part was is that I mean, we aren't that different than anybody else. Like, when things started clicking on a local level and like all our friends had stopped coming to our shows, but we had strangers coming to our shows.
Yes, that is key.
But that's like that's a really terrifying moment when, because you're thinking like, okay, we got him, like, we can't lose him. So you're trying to, kind of keep the ball rolling.
Sure.
And so we would, kind of, I mean, there were a lot of songs that were, really just okay. That we put together to just have the dial song keep going. But it was kind of like, our little 10,000 hour experience. And it was, and people keep on coming, people who recorded and tracked some of the stuff. Like we also just did the classic thing of just like, we would record right over things like that. We're just like, that was whatever, who cares?
Right.
And so there's all sorts of undocumented,
Wow.
somebody just came, brought like a couple of songs up online, that where we recorded in like 84, 85 that, I hadn't thought about, since the day it happened.
Right.
It's just like so weird. And then some of them are like really, unctuous, like crazy sort of, they have like a real get it off me kind of vibe.
Well, you still have that on your new album. You have that one song that's like microtoning out. It's like the most queasy thing. I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that it's taken 40 years for They Might Be Giants to find this new gear.
It's
John great.
Jon is very obsessed with trying to make microtonal music interesting for the general population. I have to say I find it a little challenging myself, but who am I to? I'm not going to stop.
It's great, but it's just like, it is one of those things where when we're talking about, we're Butthole Surfer fans, we love it all. And again, I want to tell you, I just need to tell you, one of my daughter's first concerts ever was seeing They Might Be Giants during the No period. We still go together to your shows in Portland. Her tastes are, her favorite bands are Death Grips, Gorillaz, Gentle Giant, King Crimson, and They Might Be Giants. Top 5. So she did okay. But I asked her, I was like, what did that music feel like as a child? And she was like, she's like, it was right next to Ronaldo and the Loaf and The Residents. It was fine. Like, it just, like, to her, it was, again, like total theater of the mind stuff. And it's been really fun. Now she's in her late 20s to just be like moving into the adulthood and being like, oh, I really am obsessed with, Dr. Worm, and I like this new record, and let me tell you, I mean, she's the one who schools me now.
Oh, interesting.
Because like we bonded also on like that, the producers of Flood did Madness, who were like a huge deal to me when I was a kid. And so it's been really fun to have, because I can't blow her mind. Like, if I play her the Butthole Surfers, she's like, quaint, check this out. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
Right.
But it's really lovely to have something that like she's grown up with, that she's still there in the crowd.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, the kid stuff is, talk about an abstract, like, I don't even have kids. So like writing kid stuff for me is like absolutely just, I'm just thinking about, my own 4-year-old mind.
It was great, John. It was total lifesaver, those records.
Oh, that's great.
Because kids want repetition and they want to control the stereo. Right? They get to that age where they're like, I want to put on my favorite things. And it just was like, I can deal with no means no. I can deal with it. I can deal with, like, where do they make balloons? I can hang. Right. Because I was like, this is comforting. So yeah, thank you again.
Well,
It made
great.
parenthood lovely. But it was funny. I do remember the period where all of a sudden I saw on the things like, this is a 14 up show. Like, you were having to kind of spell it out to people like, this is not necessarily like the children's matinee. Yeah.
Well, you get it from a lot of directions. If you don't it's hard to make those intentions clear. I mean, especially when, there was an interval there where we were still very much still in the clubs, and people didn't know. I mean, we didn't decide to give the kids stuff a different name. I think that would have
Right.
probably been a smarter professional move. Um, but the whole thing. The kids stuff ended up being like a parallel career for a good long. We weren't anticipating that it would be so well received. So we just kind of thought it'd be like doing a Christmas album, or like
Sure. Right.
a one off. I mean, in
Right.
fact, like we didn't even do. We were signed to one label, and then we did the first kids thing with another label.
Right. They're like, give it to them,
Yeah,
have
yeah,
have fun with your little project.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So it was definitely, and then it sort of metastasized into being
Right.
like a Disney thing, which is as big as you can
Oh,
possibly get.
amazing.
Yeah.
We have to get to this part because we have to talk about every single of the 481 music videos that are on your YouTube page, Jon.
Oh, wow.
So Adam Bernstein was your director of many of your early videos.
Yes. Yes.
But up to that point where he came up to you in a club and was like, hey, I'd really like to do something with you. Had the thought of making a music video entered your mind yet? Had you thought about doing that?
I mean, I want to preface everything by saying something that there's no usual context for saying it in an interview, but in my sentimental decrepitude, looking back on the history of my life is actually an important thing that should be said. And it has to do with people who are nicer and kinder than I could ever be. Adam Bernstein was one of like a clutch of people, probably like 24 people over the course of like 10 years of our life, who, for reasons I could never understand, just stepped out of the background and just were so generous to our project. Like they just really, Chris Butler from the Waitresses,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
who wrote the song Christmas Wrapping. So really fascinating guy. Lent us a DMX drum machine for like a month while he was going out on the road with the Waitresses. And he, like, we didn't really know him at all. And he was just like, you guys are great. You guys are onto something.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
using this. I'm not using this $3,000 drum machine in like 1983 money.
Right.
Don't break it, but like, and I'll be back in a month. Have a good time with it. And it was just like, we felt like we'd won the lottery.
Right.
I've never lent anybody anything I owned for $3,000.
No, me either.
Like, and like,
I don't have anything for $3,000. Number one.
right. Yeah. And it's like, and, like I remember, people would call up club owners, like people in other bands would call up club owners and say like, get these guys a gig, like give these guys a gig. Like, and I always felt like there's so many people, in the world that helped us in ways that just like, I mean, I guess this is when I said like, I felt like we were going over like we went over in a way that was like special from very early on, that made me feel like in some very abstract way that we were really lucky or blessed or had some thing that was really sparky. And the idea that it would make strangers just step up and be advocates for us in very meaningful ways. Like, we got our first gig at like dance. I've got to remember what is this? Jules Shear, the guy he wrote.
Okay, right.
Jules Shear, his songwriter, famously was Amy Mann's like other half for a couple of years.
Did you play Danceteria?
Yeah, he got us a gig at Danceteria, like at a time when like you
Amazing.
had to be like double cool to get a gig at Danceteria. Like we could never have gotten a gig at Danceteria. He called up and he's like, give these guys a gig. And I was like, okay, like, whoa, okay, that's nice. And so just on that topic, Adam Bernstein was an ambitious guy, and he had a lot of visual ideas, and he wanted to be a director. And I think he saw us as something that was like an open-ended, had open-ended possibilities, and that and maybe even thought we'd be like kind of malleable, which was sort of unfortunate because we immediately declared that there were all sorts of things we didn't want to do at all. And we
Right.
also wanted to work in this really weird, wide open way. But he basically said, like, I've got access to a camera, and we could do I would sort of find the resources to put together a video for you, and maybe it would be useful. And so we were like, okay, and we ended up going out to the end of the piers in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and just sort of filming, really just like jumping around. We actually, cooked up a bunch of like sort of improvisational choreography, so it would look like it was planned, and they were just like very simple, simple kind of in some ways like very much like a TikTok dance. It's like they're like dances that you don't have to be a dancer to know how to do, and some of the moves were actually directly copped from. I think the video was Mr. Telephone Man by New Edition. There's a part where we're like touching our faces and like making this weird kind of curious, like it's like our own touch is electrifying our body. And that was just like really riffing on New Edition's moves.
But it's funny as a viewer, though, those dance moves were so comforting because you were like, oh, they're us. Like these guys are not above. They're not. They don't think they're cooler than everyone. Like they're just having fun, and they're obviously, because being in a music video early on, it's a weird learning curve. Like it's a little.
Yes.
I found it uncomfortable at first. As somebody on the West Coast who'd never been to the East Coast, those early videos were a plethora of what the sunlight looks like outdoors on the East Coast. Like when you guys are on these piers or at the World's Fair, there's a certain light and look that I only see in like Jim Jarmusch films,
right,
or Living in Oblivion, or there's something about it that was like already identifiable as different from somebody who had still yet never touched the ground there.
Well, besides being just very generous with his time and with a little bit of his money, he also was very smart about shooting on film, because at the time there were MTV started, I guess, in like 82 or 83 and really exploded, immediately, and started really kind of moving the whole pop scene in its direction really from the jump. But what was strange is it wasn't really that well understood what the best way to present yourself in rock music video form was. And you find a lot of big artists shooting their videos essentially in TV studios on video. And the video always looks like super sweaty. And all of a sudden you're seeing like, Mick Jagger, who up until that moment looked really cool, looked really sweaty and strange. And Adam, even though we were shooting, for the first couple of rounds, we were shooting essentially on a what was it, like that
Bolex,
like
right?
a 16
like
millimeter Bolex.
Yeah, and that was a wind up.
Yeah, non-sync sound. Like everything was just
amazing,
because all the edits were so short. Even though we had a slate, like it was easy enough for them to sync up do the lip sync. The lip sync is pretty solid, but it was all done on film. And what was funny is that even though, basically the budgets were like between like $0 and $2,000 for these things,
right?
They would show up in a format that looked like $1 million. Like, Anna Ang, is a beautiful, just on a cinematographically, it's kind of a beautiful little piece of film. And that it was really because it was the medium just classed it up so much compared to what it was around. Like I remember seeing I guess was it Don't Let's Start something. one of our videos went into heavy rotation at Christmas, and we were in Brooklyn, and there was no cable TV where we were, so we didn't ever see the MTV of that era. Um, but I was at somebody's house at Christmas time, and they had MTV on the TV, and one of our songs was in like real rotation on MTV, and I remember seeing a Whitney Houston video right up against our video, and I couldn't help but think, wow, our video looks just on the most immediate level looks better. It looks like
Right.
it looks like money in a way,
Yeah. It is amazing to think how much that Start Me Up video probably cost at the time, being like, oh, video's the future.
Right.
And you guys were like using short ends from like Married to the Mob.
Yeah, Adam had worked as an assistant on that. And I mean, he was just a young guy in the film industry, so he was like driving people around to like independent productions around New York, and yeah, that was there was it was funny. I actually they had to develop. I remember when we were doing the edit of one of those things, they had to develop the entire reel of film. So we actually looked at the reel.
Oh, wow. Right.
It was a full reel of stuff that they never printed, of outtakes of Married to the Mob. And I mean, I guess they were shooting a scene. I mean, this is the least important thing to talk about in the world, but like
that's why I'm here.
I mean, this is like sub trivia. It's like trivia. Well, it was
it's a scoop.
It was like
it's a scoop.
It was they were filming the couple in the movie. Was it Married to the Mob or the one before it? That's like called something
wild.
Something wild, maybe. But they're being dragged through like the Holland Tunnel in a car, and it's an actress and an actor, and whatever the scene is, like she's talking to him, he's talking to her, and like they didn't get anything on the whole reel, so they didn't bother developing it, and that's what we were filming on the ends of somehow. And but what was really funny is that it was very clear that the actress kept blowing the line, and like, and it's like because it's a real car going through a real space, and like they only have like 20 seconds in the tunnel, and then they've got to reset the whole thing again.
Right, go back. Wow.
But there's no sync sound to this. It's just
right. You just see it.
It was just such an odd thing to witness. Like
there's your next video. I want you to recreate this.
But what was great is that like the actress would blow the line, and then the actor, who clearly was like much more professionally trained and really up for the thing, would just be like,
oh, you saw it all.
And so it was really like watching like the worst day of somebody else's life, the longest day of somebody else.
Oh my God. Well, hey, where do you go get giant heads of William Allen White built and made for your videos, and how do you transport them? Because they're huge.
They were like 6 feet tall.
Okay.
When we started the band, John and I would get home from our respective day jobs and drink coffee, and get really hopped up on coffee and talk about like how we would decorate the set of our show, our imaginary make-believe fantasy rock show. And somehow the idea of in Citizen Kane, where Orson Welles had that huge head behind him that says Kane.
Yes.
We thought like what we should do is we should just get a picture, blow up a giant picture of Orson Welles. We both worked in AV, like sort of. Like I was a paste-up artist, and John actually worked in a dark room for a company that did industrial slideshows.
Oh wow,
which was a whole thing. So we both had like visual art stuff professionally, and like we both worked in stat rooms, which is a whole world of like blowing up and manipulating photography for print and reproduction that like doesn't exist anymore. But you'd work with a stat camera that costs like $20,000, and you could blow things up. You could give things halftones and get it ready for print. And so it was like we should have a gigantic Orson Welles head behind us. And that says like, "Can't just reproduce that because
That would be incredible.
it's so cool looking." Well, I mean,
Right.
but then we actually kind of did it, except Orson Welles was still alive and he was doing those commercials, and we thought, well, he'll probably end up suing us, if we his face. So we just kind of I worked there. I worked in a publishing house, not Simon Schuster. This was when I was working at Macmillan Publishing, and they put out, I think, Golden Book encyclopedias. And in the stat room, I made a stat of William Allen White, who was just like a guy in the encyclopedia who was like famous for his journalism, but sort of an anonymous figure. He looked close enough to Citizen Kane. And I went to this place in New York back when New York was like you can repair anything. You can get your film processed at 2 a.m. You can,
wow.
There was a place called Giant Photo. It was actually Giant Photo, and their main business was like they blew up black and white photographs for museums to put in exhibits. Like, so when you see like a huge oversized, they just had a huge, they made huge prints, and we got one print made of William Allen White, like 6 feet tall, and that cost like $100, which was a lot of money for us.
Sure.
Commitment. And I very methodically sliced it into like 7.5 by 10 rectangles, and then Xeroxed them like multiple times. Bought foam core, duct taped 2 gigantic pieces of foam core together, spray mounted all the pieces puzzle-like together, and created 3 6.5, 7-foot tall heads that all had a giant seam in the middle that folded in on itself. So we could take like a little portfolio, like a art school drawing large portfolio case, and slide them into it. So it really was like 3 feet by 4 feet, and that could fit in the back of the van. And we had Velcro on the back and 2x4s, and then black line that, and we could hang them from the ceiling of any venue, and they'd just be 3 heads like hanging with essentially invisible rigging, and they were behind us, and it looked amazing.
Yes, isn't it?
It was so fantastic. It was like, talk about making something out of nothing. Like it was like, I mean, my art school education paid off so completely, because I mean, I couldn't believe everything we did in the show had to go from being 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional. Like the crazy tall like hats we wore in the Don't Start video.
Yeah,
those things are just a piece of board with like velvet fabric thrown on top of it. And again, it was just like you just custom fit it to your head. The Velcro came together, and then it was this giant tube just like tight against your head. And that was how it worked. And it only would work for like 5 minutes, like, because then it would get loose.
I'm curious now, all these years later, with so many music videos being produced, like, was there a point where you kind of let go of the concept of the video, like kind of just let other people kind of dream it up for you?
Well, it really, in a weird way, I mean, personally, I am very burned out on, the video as a concept, which makes me a little sad, because it's like,
you've done so many, John.
I know.
Fine.
But the thing is, and working with other collaborating, they're all collaborations, and collaboration is such a powerful way to kind of get things going. But the world changed over the course. As I said, like, I went to art school. I think the thing about working with Adam Bernstein, we discussed many of the things that we felt like were sort of the shortcomings of even more than working in music. Like when we started the band, we sort of were like, we don't want to have we don't want to have like a lot of solos. We don't want to have a lot of intros. We want songs to end. We don't want them to fade out. Like there were all these things that they were kind of like anti ideas. It was sort of like saying like, defining yourself by like what you don't want to do. And in a way, that's like a very new wave punk rock, simple notion. It's just like, yeah, maybe I got some negative energy, but I'm going to figure out how to do good stuff and still work within like the confines of my own, like ill feelings about these things that I think of as being kind of hacky. And it was even harder with rock videos where it was just like, you know what, like scenarios in rock videos, like B-roll things in rock videos where like, you've got, people falling in love or there's a protagonist or whatever. That's all bullshit. Fuck that shit. We're just going to make stuff that's like a pure dreamscape, but what's so weird is that, pure dreamscape is fine if you're like really into like psychedelic drugs, but like once the drugs wear off, like it's sort of a weird posture like this today, like this, are like just tripped out, like totally sensationalist, kind of nonlinear, parade of images is more compelling than any story could ever be. That's like that. I can't defend that, and then really, and yet that worked for me. That was compelling all through my 20s. I believed that, I have to admit, like, I felt like we had cracked the code very much in the same, by blowing off all these cliches as early on in the video medium as we were, it already felt like it had been flooded with a lot of really hacky ideas. And I felt like we had sort of figured a way around that stuff with how we were approaching it. But really, I think what kind of short-circuited it for me a little bit was when Spike Jonze came along and really applied a lot of film school stuff and a lot of really smart storyboarded ideas, like ideas with a lot of comic energy and a lot of just like a lot of informed, very really smart kind of ideas, more from advertising than from experimental film.
Right.
But like at the same time, really effective and really spoke to people, and people got it. And I feel like I was still, that just wasn't where my skill set was. Like that wasn't what I was good at. So it kind of, as much as I would have liked to have fit in with like a more storyboarded, linear way of making rock videos, it just wasn't that. I'm too feral for that.
Sure. It's also a ton of work. As I know, I used to make videos for sub pop bands and then for my own stuff. And I was like the cheerleader because I was like, it felt like an obligation. Like there needs to be a visual representation, because what's really fascinating about They Might Be Giants is that you were one of the few bands that were in the underground that created music videos that were seen overground.
Yeah.
Because, once in a while a touch and go band would do one or whatever. But, until like 1991 or whatever, it just like there was no home for it. Right.
Right.
And so I think it's super fascinating that like you were part of the growth of this thing. But at the point you are even on MTV, you're like, you stand out. You know what I mean? It's fascinating. But I do love that a lot of, the newer work, it definitely is like more along the lines of what you're talking about. Like, I can't remember The Dream. That is an incredible video with the masked hooded figure and breaking the, what is it? The best rock video thing. And I don't know. And my daughter was pointing out all this stuff. She's like, the coffee cup is from this is from that. Like she knew all the references.
Right.
But, and then, You're on Fire, which has like Lauren Lapkus in it. Like, and a
Mhm.
singing amount of hamburger meat. I'm like, these are really like high concept, good looking videos, and there's multitudes of them on your site. It's pretty impressive. It seems like the people who want to do stuff with you and collaborate are so excited to be there and up for the challenge.
Well, I mean, and they are, and those, I mean, the, like those productions are not my productions. I just want to. I mean, basically, I I worked in the very last job I had, which I neither quit nor was fired from, but it just floated away in the ether as touring took over my life in 1987, 88. Um, I worked at Condé Nast, and it was a great job. And I worked uh, in as a pace-up artist in this. And but one of the there was a photo there was a photo editor and like people like just art directors and working with those people. I saw how you could really be how you could like take a pitch and then like amplify it and how you could actually work as like you could really supervise something from a distance and I never forgot about that stuff. And as we started doing really doing the Disney stuff where we were working with tons of animators, often very people who were just really working on a laptop, like computer based, one person, two person shows. I ended up having to like sort of assign all these all these jobs to people. We were doing hour long DVDs that were
Right.
mostly original videos and animations, and so there was just like no end to the amount of projects to assign, and that kind of gave me the like I realized like I can actually work with all these incredibly talented people who are just kind of in that liminal space between like film school and TV commercials or whatever. Like they don't have any gigs. Like I can pay them, a small amount of money, let them totally do the thing that they want to do, and give them a little bit of marquee value for what they are. Like, they get a resume piece, they've got something brand new on their reel, and it's totally in their style. Like, my whole thing was like finding people who had an incredible amount of style that just, and let them be like I wasn't trying to fix them. A lot of times people get hired because they do something good on a technical level, but what they really want to do is not what the client wants them to
Right.
do. I
Right.
I feel like the one thing as a video supervisor that I've gotten really good at is figuring out how to not make people stretch. Like it's just like you do like that thing that like you alluded to on your reel that obviously you're really good at. I want that wall to wall.
Yes.
Give me the thing you're great at,
Right.
and and it'll be great. So it's like, but yeah, I mean, like in a way, I mean, I've worked with like dozens and dozens of different video production people and video directors now, and I am very grateful that like everybody's been so up for it.
So, like, when you have a new record, are you still in this day and age having to think about music videos for them?
We've done one animated video for this thing with our David Coles, who we've collaborated with on a million animated things. He did one thing for this next album, and I mean, we're talking about doing something else, but it's like it's the weird thing is that YouTube, which was the platform for rock videos, is now the role of music on YouTube is more as a music player. Like people
Yes.
actually listen to YouTube like it's Spotify. It's like Spotify for people who don't want Spotify,
Yes.
and the visuals don't, it might just be a visualizer, or it might be just be a lyric video or something. I mean, I just did a very quick lyric video with stock footage for a song off the new album.
Yeah,
It's
Sleeps.
just like, yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. That is beautiful footage, but it's very.
It's just stock footage.
Oh my God, it's very spooky at the end. I did not expect it to turn like, I'm like,
yeah. No, I
okay,
mean,
okay, I'm scared.
I treated it a little bit, and the hardest part was actually doing the graphical stuff because I don't have any. I don't know how to do After Effects or anything like that. So I'm doing it all like doing screen captures and manipulating like text. I'm using text edit for the graphic, capturing the screen and then removing type and stuff.
It's your soulmate. I'm so right there with you. Like, I'm the same way. I'm just like, I know there's a better way to do this.
Oh God, I was just working with my friend Liz putting the album cover together a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, you should really look, because I'll bring in my weird duck, scotch taped and
right
cardboard mock-up thing with like my Sharpie. Yeah, and she's like, you could do like a one-day seminar, and like you wouldn't even need me anymore. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. But evidently, there are these weekend like crash course things you can take that show you how to use After Effects or Illustrator or.
All right, we're signing up right now. After this is done, we're going to get on it.
I'm old, man. I just don't.
Hey, I'm right there with you.
I don't have that much bandwidth to learn. I've already learned all the new things.
No, you've done it. The proof is there. It's like and in a way, like I know that I could use like programs to edit this show and it would cut out all the and that, but it's like I can't do that. I can't do it because I don't trust. I need to go through bit by bit and tighten it up on my own. It's a time suck. It's just who I am. I do want to ask you about something that is featured in Gigantic, but I also remember seeing it in real time. But I want to ask you about the time you played on The Tonight Show with Doc Severson, because at that time, again, didn't see many people from your arena of music on TV playing in such kind of that was so iconic, Doc Severson and what, growing up with Johnny Carson and that band. How was that experience? Because on the other side, watching it, I know a lot of people were really affected by that performance.
Well, it's a weird performance. I mean, speaking of sweaty, it seems like kind of a sweaty performance in retrospect. And there are things about it that are so wrong, but I think culturally, there are things. Listen, like what I am very aware that it was a countercultural breakthrough. There was Johnny Carson hated rock music, and I think the Turtles were on. I think the Turtles were on like the Tonight Show in like 1966, and like smoked a joint and backstage, and
that was it.
People got mad, and he was like, "I hate it. No more rock bands on the show. Forget it." And that cultural boycott stood. And then, Jay Leno started taking over the show as a sub-host for Johnny. And he was like, why can't we have rock bands on? Like, who cares? And it's like, okay, they came to us and said, you might have to play with Doc Severson. And we were like, have to play? We'd love to play with Doc Severson. That sounds like a blast. So the guitar player there was an arranger who was the guitar player in Oingo Boingo, who I think still does a lot of charts.
No, Stephen Bartek.
Yeah, Stephen Bartek.
Yes.
Did the chart. Yeah, did the chart for the band. And
wow.
I do remember there were things about it that were super crazy. I mean, first of all, it was counted, and this I think this is in the Gigantic movie. Doc Severson insisted on counting off the tempo of the song.
No, that's not in the movie.
And he was like, I don't know what kind of jazz cigarettes he was smoking, but he counted it off way too fast. So and then we're suddenly like locked into this like hopped up tempo, and left to our own devices, maybe we would have counted it off too fast. I have no idea, but I'm not saying I'm better at counting in a band under like a lot of strange personal pressure than him. But he was on the show every night. I would have thought he would have just taken.
It's rock and roll, baby. He's like, that just goes fast. Come on.
Oh, and there was a funny thing about the thing about the Birdhouse song that's kind of curious is it kind of has a backwards beat. Like there's a tom hit on the 1 and 3 that's kind of going like gig like, and Ed Shaughnessy, I don't know what chart he was reading, but like he was not playing the beat on the recording.
Okay.
And like I think everyone's being like super diplomatic, like walking tiptoe around everybody else, like trying to respect everybody's musical space. But at one point, I think like we whispered to Steve that like this is not actually the way the feel of the song goes, and like is there a way he can do it? And he actually literally said like, I'm playing the rock beat. And I really appreciated the idea that in Ed Shaughnessy's mind, the entire rhythmic interest of rock music had been distilled into a monolithic beat.
Oh my God!
And and this is the thing: is like to a jazz guy, I'm sure that rock just seems like this incredibly troglodyte thing, and Ed Shaughnessy is an amazing drummer. He is on some incredible records, so it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. But it was like, and to this day, John and I do reference the, and he was playing, I'm playing the rock beat, and I don't know if people laughed. It was not something that was said for comic effect, although it seems the same to me now.
It's beautiful.
And then the final thing I'll say about this, I mean, that moment is sort of burned into my brain a little bit. We're playing the song and things are going okay, even though it's this frenetic tempo. And I remember all through the sound check, I was playing through a Fender Deluxe, and anybody who is in a relatively quiet band knows that if you're playing a Fender Deluxe, between volume 2 and volume 1 3/4,
yes,
the volume of the amp basically disappears.
Absolutely.
Like it's just like it might as well be off because there's nothing really coming out once you're below that little threshold. And I would just I put it to like 2, which basically is on, and I'm playing the line, the dun, 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 in the song, and the guys, there's 4 like trombone players behind. It's like a 16-piece band.
Yeah.
There's 4 guys all playing the trombone, and we're all playing this line in unison together, right? And like they're like, whoa, man, turn down. Whoa, you gotta turn down. You gotta turn down. And I'm like, it's like, oh shit, okay, whatever. And I'm creeping this amp back to like into the invisible territory. And it's like, oh, this is okay, whatever. This is how it's going. And I think the reason they hated it is because it was very distorted. I mean, just like fuzzy. It was not like cranked up. I was like, I had a little tube fuzz box thing that replicated that kind of big Marshall sound, but like it wasn't volume. It was, the tone was automatic. But then when we actually did the show, there's this point where, I'm starting to do the line, and then the trombones are doing the unison line with me. They I don't know if they stood up, but like it felt like they basically, for the first time in the entire proceeding, they stood up, and all 4 of them are right behind me playing at like full volume. For the first time, the entire sound check, they had never played anything close to that volume.
Oh my God.
And it's like, I felt like my hair was getting parted on the other side, on the back of my head. And you can't really tell, but I'm just like, I'm being lifted off the ground by their volume. And the idea that these guys were telling me that I was playing too, I've never heard a sound as loud. I feel like I can still hear the tinnitus starting in my right ear from this experience. Like they were so friggin' loud. They were an incredibly loud band.
That is brilliant. John, this has been so much fun. I'm so honored to have you on the show. And the next time you see me, it'll be myself and my daughter waving to you, probably at the Crystal Ballroom. at the end of every episode, I ask a question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. But today I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'd like you to pick a number from the number 1 up to the number 482, representing all the music videos of They Might Be Giants. Pick a number, and I've got a randomizer here that is going to tell me what music video will represent you in the space of They Might Be Giants. On a scale of 1 to 482, what's your number?
300.
300? Here it goes, the randomizer. You are represented in the music video space that They Might Be Giants by the song and video for Ampersand. That is you, my friend. So congratulations. It seems appropriate. Thank you for everything that you've done. Let's get that next They Might Be Giants documentary going. It was really great to see you, Jon. Thank you so much.
The pleasure was all mine, and it was a fascinating interview. It was fun for me. Great questions, great vibes. It was cool.
Thank you, Jon. Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show is a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye.